Owen Blake wiped dust from the thermal scanner and watched the numbers climb. Something was wrong with the old storage bay, but he could not quite figure out what. The third shift meant he worked alone, which suited him just fine. Most people made him tired with their constant talking and laughing. Here in the belly of Cradle of Stars research station, surrounded by ancient artifacts and humming machines, he found a strange kind of peace. The bay stretched out before him like a metal cave filled with treasures from dead civilizations. Pods and containers lined the walls, each holding secrets that scientists spent years trying to understand. Owen did not care much about the history. His job was simple: keep the environmental systems running, make sure nothing overheated or froze, and file reports that nobody read. He moved between the rows of storage units, checking seals and recording temperatures. Most nights passed without incident. Tonight felt different. The air tasted metallic, and the hair on his arms stood up like tiny soldiers at attention. Owen had learned to trust these feelings growing up on a frontier colony where predators hunted by moonlight. His mother always said fear kept you alive, but panic got you killed. The scanner beeped urgently. Owen stopped in front of a massive cylindrical pod that had arrived just 2 weeks ago. The excavation team had pulled it from a dead world's core, sealed in rock that took 3 days to cut through. Dr. Hallex, the Volrene scientist who led the artifact division, had been excited about this find. She said the pod was over 10,000 years old, perfectly preserved by some ancient technology. Now that pod was heating up. Owen pressed his hand against the dark metal surface. Warm. Definitely warm. He pulled out his communicator and hit the emergency channel. Blake took command. I have a situation in Artifact Storage Bay 3. Temperature anomaly on Unit 779. Static crackled before Commander Torvin's rough voice came through. Define anomaly, Blake. The big pod from the Kessler dig. It is warming up fast. Internal temperature rising 15 degrees in the last 10 minutes. Silence. Then do not touch anything. Security and science teams are on their way. Owen stepped back from the pod and waited. The lighting in the bay dimmed and brightened in a slow rhythm, matching the pulse of the station's power core. He counted his breaths the way his therapist taught him years ago. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. It helped with the anxiety that lived in his chest like a second heartbeat. Boots pounded on metal deck plates. Dr. Hallex arrived first, her forearms carrying various scanning devices. Her compound eyes reflected the emergency lights as she rushed past Owen without a word. Behind her came 3 security officers in full armor, weapons ready. What do we know? Commander Torvin entered last, his scaled skin gleaming under the harsh lights. The Graxian commander never ran, but he moved with the efficiency of someone who had spent decades in military service. Dr. Hallex's voice came out high and tight. The stasis field is collapsing. Internal biosigns are active. It is waking up. It? Owen asked. Hallex turned to face him, and for the first time since he had known her, she looked genuinely afraid. According to the preliminary scans, this pod contains a Dravix. The security officers shifted nervously. Owen saw their fingers tighten on their weapons. I do not know what that is, Owen said. Commander Torvin pulled up a holographic display. Ancient biological weapon, engineered to feed on fear itself. They were used 10,000 years ago to break planetary defenses. One Dravix could destroy an entire city in a single night. Owen studied the image floating in the air. The creature looked like a shadow-given form, with too many limbs and eyes that seemed to shift color even in the still picture. How do you kill one? A security officer asked. You do not, Torvin said flatly. Every recorded encounter ends with total annihilation. The species that created them is extinct. Most historians think the Dravix killed their makers. The pod began to shake. Frost crystals that had covered its surface melted and ran down the sides like tears. Deep inside, something moved. Evacuate the sector, Torvin ordered. Seal the blast doors. Get everyone to the safe zones. Dr. Hallex gathered her equipment. The security team backed toward the exit. Owen watched them prepare to run, and something in him went very still. The feeling reminded him of the time a ridge cat cornered him on his colony world. He had been 12 years old and alone in the forest. The cat could have killed him easily. Instead, Owen sat down, made himself small, and waited. The cat watched him for long minutes before walking away. Blake, move, Torvin commanded. The pod split open with a sound like breaking ice. Mist poured out, thick and gray. The security team fired their weapons into the fog, but the energy bolt seemed to disappear without hitting anything. Then it emerged. The Dravix was bigger than the hologram suggested. Its body shifted between solid and shadow, making it hard to focus on. Multiple limbs unfolded like a spider waking from sleep. Eyes opened across its form, each one a different color. It released a sound that was not quite a roar, more like wind through a canyon. Everyone ran. Owen heard their boots clanging on the deck plates as they fled toward the exit. The emergency alarm wailed, adding to the chaos. Owen stood alone in the bay with a creature designed to be the ultimate terror weapon. The Dravix turned its many eyes toward him. Owen expected to feel fear, the kind that freezes your blood and stops your heart. Instead, he felt curious. The creature looked tired. Its form flickered like a bad video feed. It swayed slightly, as if standing took great effort. "Hey there," Owen said quietly. "Rough nap?" The Dravix tilted its massive head. The gesture reminded Owen of a confused dog. Owen slowly extended his hand. 3 cameras tracked every movement in the storage bay. Commander Torvin watched the feeds from the safety of the command center, his claws digging small grooves into the armrest of his chair. Around him, the night crew stood frozen, staring at screens that showed something impossible. Owen Blake stood face to face with a Dravix, and neither of them was moving. "Why is he not dead?" someone whispered. "Why is it not attacking?" another voice asked. Dr. Hallex pushed through the crowd, her scanning equipment still clutched in 2 of her 4 arms. She tapped commands into a console and pulled up the creature's biological readings. The numbers made no sense. "Its energy levels are critically low," she said. "The creature is starving." "Then it should be ripping Blake apart to feed," Torvin replied. His own heart hammered in his chest. He had studied Dravix attacks in military academy. They were case studies in pure terror. No one survived long enough to negotiate or reason. On screen, Owen took a step closer to the creature. Torvin nearly hit the emergency gas release that would flood the bay with knockout agents. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way Owen moved, slow and careful, like approaching a wounded animal. Maybe it was the way the Dravix watched Owen without the predatory focus described in every historical account. "Blake, can you hear me?" Torvin activated the communication system. "Yes, sir." Owen's voice came through clearly. He did not take his eyes off the creature. "What are you doing?" "Honestly, I am not sure, but I think it is more confused than dangerous right now." The Dravix shifted closer to Owen. Its form seemed more solid now, less like smoke and more like flesh. Multiple limbs touched the floor, searching for balance. Owen reached out slowly and placed his palm against what might have been the creature's shoulder. The contact looked gentle, almost friendly. Dr. Hallex made a strangled sound in her throat. "That is not possible. Dravix biology requires fear energy to sustain basic functions. Blake should be terrified. The creature should be feeding." "Maybe Blake is terrified and just hiding it well," suggested Dane, a young security officer who had barely made it out of the bay alive. Torvin pulled up Owen's personnel file. The human had worked on the station for 3 years, always taking the night shifts, rarely socializing. Psychological evaluation from his last check noted mild depression, but nothing concerning. The file mentioned his colony upbringing, including survival training for hostile environments. "Blake grew up on Redstone Colony," Torvin said, more to himself than anyone else. "That world has predators that make most species look friendly. The colonists there learn young. Panic kills you faster than claws." On the screen, the Dravix lowered its massive head onto Owen's lap. The human sat down on the cold floor without hesitation, letting the creature rest against him. Owen's hand moved in slow strokes across the creature's form. The command center erupted in confused voices. "Sir, we need to eliminate the threat now while it is weak. We cannot just gas them." "Blake is in there." The human made his choice. "The safety of 800 crew members matters more." Torvin raised his hand for silence. His military training screamed at him to neutralize the threat. His instincts told him to trust what his eyes showed him. This did not look like any Dravix encounter in recorded history. "Blake, I am ordering you to evacuate immediately." "No, sir." The simple refusal shocked everyone in the command center. Crew members did not say no to Commander Torvin. "That is not a request, Blake." "I understand, sir. But this creature is not attacking. It is exhausted and confused. If I leave now, if it wakes up alone and scared, then maybe it becomes what everyone fears. Right now it is just tired." Dr. Halleck studied her readings more carefully. Her compound eyes widened. "Commander, look at this. The creature's biosigns are stabilizing. not increasing like they should be if it were feeding on fear. They are stabilizing in a pattern I have never seen before. What does that mean? I do not know. But Blake's presence is affecting it somehow. She pulled up more data. Human psychic signatures are unusual compared to most species. They project emotional energy differently. Empathy, compassion, these feelings have measurable frequencies. You think Blake is feeding it empathy instead of fear? I think Blake is offering something the creature has never experienced before. Hallex looked at Torvin with wonder in her eyes. We need to study this. 24 hours. Give me 24 hours to monitor and record. Torvin thought about his duty to the station. He thought about the fleet that would be dispatched if word got out that a Dravix was loose. He thought about the millions who died the last time these creatures walked free. Then he looked at the screen again. Owen sat with his back against a storage container. The Dravix curled around him like a protective barrier. The human talked quietly, though no one could hear the words. The creature's eyes were half closed, its breathing slow and rhythmic. 24 hours, Torvin decided. But the bay stays sealed. Security teams stay ready. And if anything changes, we flood that room with enough knockout gas to drop an elephant. Understood, Commander, Dr. Halleck said. The night shift slowly returned to their stations, though everyone kept one eye on the monitors. Torvin assigned rotating watch teams. Someone needed to observe every minute of this unprecedented situation. Hours passed. Owen seemed to doze off, his head tilting to one side. The Dravix wrapped more limbs around him, not threatening but sheltering. Several crew members commented that it looked almost protective. Dr. Hallex brought her entire research team in. They set up remote scanners and monitoring equipment. The data they collected rewrote everything known about Dravix biology. The fear processing organs were shrinking. New neural pathways were forming. The creature was changing at a cellular level. This is incredible, Hallex whispered. It is adapting to a new fuel source, rewriting its own biology. How is that possible? Torvin asked. The Dravix were not always weapons. My research suggests they were natural empaths before some ancient civilization corrupted them. Maybe this one is reverting to its original form. Torvin watched Owen sleep with a living weapon of mass destruction curled around him. The human looked more peaceful than his psychological file suggested he ever felt. The creature looked content for the first time since emerging from its ancient prison. What do we call it? Dane asked. The young officer had returned to the command center, unable to stay away from the monitors. Call what? The Dravix. We cannot just call it the creature or the threat if it is not threatening anyone. On screen, Owen stirred and opened his eyes. The Dravix immediately lifted its head, watching him with concern. Owen smiled and patted the creature gently. Blake seems to have everything under control, Torvin said. Ask him what he wants to call it. Dane opened a communication channel. Blake, do you have a name for your new friend? Owen thought for a moment. Shade. Its form looks like a living shadow. And shadows are not scary when you understand them. Shade it is, Commander Torvin agreed. As the station's day shift began arriving for work, word spread quickly. A Dravix was awake, alive, and apparently harmless. Crew members gathered at observation windows that looked into the storage bay. Some came out of fear, wanting to see the monster for themselves. Others came out of curiosity. Owen stood and stretched, his body stiff from sleeping on the floor. Shade rose with him, staying close. When Owen walked toward the bay's small bathroom facility, Shade followed. When Owen sat back down, Shade settled beside him. Dr. Hallex recorded everything, her scientific mind racing with possibilities. Commander Torvin tried to ignore the growing sense that his station had just become the center of something much bigger than anyone realized. And in the storage bay, Owen Blake talked quietly to the creature that chose his lap over chaos, teaching an ancient weapon that there were better ways to exist than fear. Ravi pressed his three-fingered hand against the observation window and watched Owen share his breakfast with Shade. The Centillion linguist had volunteered for this, but now his courage felt thin as paper. His species had minor telepathic abilities, useful for translation work, terrible for staying calm when about to meet a legendary killer. You can still back out, Dr. Hallex said. Her voice carried more kindness than usual. No. If we want to prove Shade is different, someone has to be the first. Ravi took a deep breath. Besides, Blake cannot be the only one. What happens when he needs to leave, when he gets sick or tired? Commander Torvin stood nearby, arms crossed over his chest. We will have security teams positioned outside. Any sign of aggression, we pull you out immediately. Ravi nodded. His mouth felt dry. Fear tasted like metal on his tongue. He wondered if Shade could sense it from here, through the walls and doors that separated them. The old story said Dravix could smell terror from miles away. The door slid open. Ravi stepped into the storage bay. Owen sat on the floor with Shade sprawled beside him, multiple limbs extended in different directions. The creature looked relaxed, almost lazy. But the moment Ravi entered, Shade's form shifted. Its body darkened, became more dense. Eyes that had been half closed snapped fully open, focusing on the new arrival. Ravi froze. His telepathic sense picked up Shade's sudden interest. Not quite hunger, but something primal stirring awake. "Hey, look at me." Owen's voice cut through the tension. He did not sound worried, just firm. "Remember what we talked about. You do not need to do that anymore." Shade's attention split between Ravi and Owen. The creature's form flickered, struggling between two states. Its limbs tensed, relaxed, tensed again. Ravi could feel the internal battle through his mental abilities. Ancient programming versus new experience. Instinct versus choice. "Come on, Shade. You are stronger than the thing they made you." Owen reached out and touched the creature's nearest limb. "Just breathe. Like we practiced." Slowly, painfully, Shade's form lightened again. The predatory edge dulled. The creature turned away from Ravi and pressed against Owen instead, making a low sound that vibrated through the bay. Owen looked at Ravi and gave a small smile. That was good. That was really good. He spoke to Shade, but his eyes told Ravi it was safe to move. Ravi took careful steps forward. His heart beat so hard he thought it might crack his ribs. Sweat made his uniform stick to his skin. But he kept walking until he stood just a few feet away. "Hello, Shade," he said softly. His telepathic sense reached out gently, not probing, just offering presence. Shade lifted its head. Several eyes fixed on Ravi. The centillion felt waves of emotion from the creature. Confusion, curiosity, and something that felt remarkably like loneliness. "It is okay to be scared," Owen said to Ravi. "Shade knows the difference now between fear and threat, right?" He looked at the creature with genuine affection. "You are learning." Ravi sat down slowly. His legs shook, but he managed to fold them under himself. He was close enough now to touch Shade if he reached out. The creature made no aggressive moves, just watched him with alien intelligence. "May I?" Ravi extended his hand. Shade glanced at Owen, who nodded encouragingly. Then the creature stretched one limb toward Ravi. The contact was gentle, almost hesitant. Through his telepathic abilities, Ravi suddenly understood much more. Shade was young by its species standards. It had been put into stasis shortly after its creation, never given a chance to live before being locked away. 10,000 years of sleep had not aged it, just stolen time it never had. The creature carried memories that were not its own, genetic programming that told it to hunt and feed and terrify. But underneath all that, Ravi sensed something pure. A desire to connect. A desperate loneliness that matched the feeling he had picked up from Owen's mind during their first meeting months ago. Two lost beings who found each other by accident. Tears ran down Ravi's face. He did not try to stop them. "What is wrong?" Owen asked, concerned. "Nothing is wrong. Everything is right." Ravi kept his hand against Shade's limb. It never wanted to be a weapon. None of them did. Dr. Halleck's voice came through the communication system. "Ravi, what are you sensing?" They were empaths. The original Dravix species were natural empaths. They felt what others felt and helped share emotional burdens. Some ancient civilization found them and twisted that ability, forced them to feed on fear instead of sharing joy. Shade knows this somehow. It remembers what its species was supposed to be. In the command center, Dr. Halleck pulled up research files with frantic speed. "That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. The biological structures we found are not natural weapons. They are corrupted healing organs. Commander Torvin felt something shift in his chest. His people had been terrorized by a Dravix 3 centuries ago. His great-grandmother survived, but spent her remaining years afraid of darkness, of shadows, of her own reflection sometimes. That Dravix had killed millions before dying in atomic fire, but maybe that creature had been suffering too. Maybe it had hated what it was forced to do. Blake, Torvin opened a channel to the bay. I am coming down there. Sir? Owen sounded surprised. If a centillion can face his fears, so can a Graxian. Torvin left the command center. His feet carried him through familiar corridors that suddenly felt strange. He had walked these paths hundreds of times. Now they led to a confrontation he never imagined having. The bay door opened. Torvin stepped inside. Shade reacted immediately. The creature rose to its full height, towering over everyone. Its form expanded, darkened, became the nightmare from every story. Because Torvin did not just bring normal fear into the room, he brought generational trauma, inherited terror, the weight of millions of deaths. Shade fed on that energy without meaning to. The creature grew stronger, more solid, more dangerous with each second. "Commander, get out!" Owen shouted. But Torvin stood his ground. He forced himself to look at Shade. Really look. Not at the monster from his people's history. At the being in front of him now. "You are not the one who hurt my family," Torvin said. His voice shook, but held firm. "You are a victim of the same evil that created the one who hurt them." Shade paused. Its many eyes focused on Torvin. "My great-grandmother was terrified every day after the attack. She died afraid. I grew up hating your kind, hating the idea of you." Torvin took a step forward. "But hate is just fear with different clothes. And I am tired of being afraid." Shade moved toward him. Owen tensed, ready to intervene. Ravi's telepathic sense screamed warnings. But Shade did not attack. The creature reached out and gently touched Torvin's shoulder. Through that contact, through whatever remained of its empathic abilities, Shade shared something. Torvin felt the creature's sorrow, its confusion, its desperate desire to be anything other than what it was created to be. Both of them stood there, predator and prey, victim and victim, sharing pain that spanned millennia. When Shade pulled away, its form had returned to the gentler state. Torvin's rigid military posture softened. Something had passed between them, understanding without words. "I will help you," Torvin said quietly. "I will make sure the fleet understands you are not a threat." Shade settled back down beside Owen, who looked at the Graxian commander with new respect. "Thank you, sir," Owen said. Torvin nodded and left the bay. His legs felt weak. His heart beat unevenly. But for the first time since childhood, when he thought about Dravix, he did not feel crushing fear. Dr. Hallex met him in the corridor. "Commander, the Galactic Council just sent a priority message. They know about Shade. A fleet is being assembled." "How much time do we have?" 72 hours, maybe less." Torvin looked back at the bay door. Inside, Owen sat with both Ravi and Shade, 3 beings who should never have been able to share the same space peacefully. "Then we have 72 hours to change 10,000 years of history," Torvin said. Kessa adjusted her tool belt and tried to stop her hands from shaking. The Volrene engineer had worked on Cradle of Stars for 5 years, fixing everything from life support to weapon systems. She had crawled through spaces that would crush most species. She had repaired leaking fuel lines while wearing a suit that would fail if she made one wrong move. But walking into a room with a Dravix still felt like the hardest thing she had ever done. "You do not have to do this," Owen said through the communication link. He stood inside the bay with Shade, who had learned to recognize regular visitors now. Ravi sat nearby documenting Shade's behavioral changes. 2 other crew members had successfully met the creature yesterday. "Yes, I do," Kessa replied. "My daughter asked me last night if the monster was going to eat everyone. I told her no, told her it was safe. I cannot tell her that and then be too scared to see for myself. The door opened. Kessa stepped through. Shade lay sprawled across the floor like a cat in sunlight. Its form had become more consistent over the past 2 days, less shifting shadow and more solid flesh. Multiple eyes tracked Kessa's entrance, but the creature did not rise. "Shade, this is Kessa." Owen introduced them casually, as if this was a normal social situation. "She keeps all our systems running. Basically, she is the reason we have air and heat and everything else that keeps us alive." Shade made a rumbling sound. Not aggressive, more like acknowledgement. Kessa forced her feet to move forward. Her forearms clutched a small scanning device, though she barely remembered why she had brought it. Her compound eyes gave her a wide field of vision, letting her see Owen's encouraging smile and Shade's calm posture at the same time. "Hello," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Shade tilted its head. Then it did something unexpected. It reached out carefully and touched the scanner in Kessa's lower right hand. The creature examined the device with obvious curiosity, turning it gently to see different angles. "Shade likes tools," Owen explained. "Watches me work all the time now. I think it finds the equipment interesting." "Really?" Kessa relaxed slightly. She held up the scanner. "This measures energy fields. See, you point it like this." She demonstrated, and Shade followed the movement with multiple eyes. For the next 20 minutes, Kessa forgot to be afraid. She showed Shade various tools explaining what each one did. The creature listened with surprising attention. When Kessa asked if she could scan Shade directly, the creature moved closer and held still. By the time Kessa left the bay, she was smiling. Word spread fast. More crew members volunteered to meet Shade. A young Graxian security officer named Dane spent an hour teaching the creature a simple hand gesture game. A human botanist named Patricia read poetry aloud while Shade rested its head in her lap. Dr. Hallex documented everything. Her research showed Shade's biology continuing to transform. The organs that processed fear energy were almost completely inactive now. New structures had formed, similar to the empathic centers found in species known for emotional intelligence. "It is rebuilding itself," Hallex explained to Commander Torvin. "Choosing a new form based on new experiences. This should be impossible, but we are watching it happen." Torvin studied the data. "Will it last? Could Shade revert if exposed to enough fear? Unknown. The transformation seems stable, but we have no long-term data." Hallex pulled up another file. "However, I found something in the ancient texts. 3 previous cases of Dravik showing reduced aggression. All were destroyed before anyone could study them properly. The reports were dismissed as manipulation tactics. Maybe they were not tactics. Maybe those creatures were trying to change too, and we killed them for it." The weight of that possibility sat heavy between them. A priority alert flashed across the command center screens. The fleet had arrived early. 5 warships representing different galactic powers now held position around the station. "They are here," Torvin said unnecessarily. Everyone could see the massive vessels through the observation windows. Admiral Varesh of the Kryn military sent the first message. His species had lost 2 colony worlds to Dravik's attacks 4,000 years ago. His demand was simple: surrender the creature for immediate termination. Diplomat Senna from the Yeltarian Union offered a more measured response. She requested a formal hearing to review the situation before any decisions were made. Elder Morthus, an ancient Volrene historian, simply wanted to observe. His message noted that he had studied Draviks for 8 decades and never imagined seeing one alive. "They are calling for a tribunal," Torvin told his senior staff. "They will hear our evidence, but the final decision belongs to them." "When?" Dr. Hallex asked. "Tomorrow. They are boarding the station tonight." Owen heard the news while replacing a faulty power coupling. Shade had followed him to the worksite, staying close but not interfering. The creature had learned to hand Owen tools when asked, though it could not tell a wrench from a soldering iron yet. "We have visitors coming," Owen said quietly. "Important ones. They want to decide if you should live." Shade made a questioning sound. "I know. It is not fair. You did not ask to be a weapon. You did not choose what they made you." Owen sat down on the deck, suddenly tired. "I will not let them kill you. I promise." Shade moved closer and wrapped several limbs around Owen in what had become a familiar embrace. The creature radiated concern, responding to Owen's distress. "I am okay," Owen lied. Then more honestly, "I am scared for you." That night, Owen could not sleep. He lay in the bay with Shade curled around him, staring at the ceiling. His mind raced through possibilities. The tribunal could order Shade destroyed. They could take the creature away for study, lock it in a lab somewhere. They could decide the risk was too great and burn Shade to ash just to be safe. Owen had spent most of his adult life feeling disconnected from the world. Depression made everything feel distant and muted, like watching life through foggy glass. But Shade had changed that. Taking care of the creature gave Owen purpose. Teaching it, protecting it. These things mattered in a way nothing else had for years. He was not ready to lose that. Was not ready to lose Shade. Tomorrow we face them together, Owen whispered. Whatever happens, you are not alone. Shade's eyes closed slowly, trusting Owen to keep watch. In the command center, Torvin reviewed the evidence they had gathered. Dr. Hallex prepared her scientific presentation. Ravi organized testimony from everyone who had met Shade peacefully. The fleet representatives arrived on schedule, flanked by armed guards. Admiral Voresh looked like he expected a fight. Diplomat Senna appeared cautiously optimistic. Elder Morthus simply looked ancient and tired. We will convene the tribunal at dawn, Voresh announced. The Draviks will be brought to a secure conference room for evaluation. Shade, Owen corrected, stepping forward. Its name is Shade. Voresh fixed Owen with a hard stare. It is a weapon, human. Weapons do not get names. Then maybe your definition of weapon is wrong. The conference room fell silent. No one spoke to an admiral that way. You will have a chance to make your case tomorrow, maintenance worker, Voresh said coldly. I suggest you use that time to prepare better arguments than sentiment. As the fleet representatives left to settle into their quarters, Owen felt the pressure of what was coming. Tomorrow would determine everything. He returned to the bay where Shade waited. Ready to show them who you really are? Owen asked. Shade stood and moved close to Owen, standing taller than it had in days. The creature looked strong now, healthy, no longer the starving, confused being that had emerged from the pod. Together, they waited for dawn and judgment. The conference room had been cleared of furniture except for a raised platform where the tribunal sat. Admiral Voresh occupied the center position, his military medals gleaming under the harsh lights. Diplomat Senna sat to his left, her diplomatic robes a splash of color against the gray walls. Elder Morthus took the right side, his ancient frame supported by a specialized chair. Security forces lined the walls, weapons ready, but not aimed. Owen stood in the center of the room with Shade beside him. The creature's form remained calm despite the obvious tension. We will hear evidence regarding the Draviks currently designated as Specimen 779, Admiral Voresh began. His voice carried the weight of someone used to being obeyed. Commander Torvin, present your case. Torvin stepped forward. Honored Tribunal, what we have witnessed over the past 4 days challenges everything we know about Dravik's behavior. This creature has shown no aggression despite multiple opportunities. It has formed peaceful bonds with 15 different crew members across 6 species. Most importantly, it has demonstrated choice. Choice? Voresh's tone made the word sound ridiculous. Draviks are biological weapons. They do not choose. Then explain how this one chose not to kill me, Torvin replied. My people were attacked by a Draviks 300 years ago. I carry that genetic memory, that terror in my blood. When I entered the bay, the creature could have fed on that fear until I was a broken shell. Instead, it showed restraint. It showed regret. Elder Morthus leaned forward, his old eyes bright with interest. That is a significant claim, Commander. In my 8 decades of studying Draviks, I have never encountered evidence of regret. Because no one gave them the chance to show it, Dr. Hallex interjected. She activated a holographic display. Look at this data. The creature's biology has transformed. The fear processing organs are inactive. New neural pathways have formed. This is not temporary behavioral suppression. This is fundamental change. Diplomat Senna studied the information carefully. Dr. Hallex, what caused this transformation? Exposure to positive emotional energy from human Owen Blake. We believe Draviks were originally empathic species before corruption. This one is reverting to its natural state. Speculation, Admiral Voresh dismissed, based on incomplete research and wishful thinking. Then let me show you proof, Owen said. All eyes turned to him. I request permission to demonstrate Shade's control. Voresh considered this. What kind of demonstration? Expose Shade to fear, real fear. If it maintains control, that proves it has changed. The tribunal members looked at each other. Diplomat Senna spoke first. That could be dangerous. Everything about this situation is dangerous, Owen replied. But doing nothing, killing Shade without understanding what it has become, that is dangerous too. You will always wonder if you made the right choice. Elder Morthus nodded slowly. The human has a point. We have recordings of Dravik's attacks. We could play psychic fear recordings. If the creature maintains control, that would be unprecedented. Admiral Varesh clearly did not like this idea, but he was trapped by his own logic. Very well. But if the creature shows any sign of reverting, we terminate immediately. Understood, Owen said. He looked at Shade. You ready? Shade made a low sound. Not confident, but willing. The security teams activated their weapons. Dr. Hallex pulled up archived recordings from ancient Dravik's attacks. The psychic components had been preserved, meant for research. Now they would serve as a test. Beginning playback, Hallex announced. The recordings filled the room with echoes of terror, screams that were not quite sound, fear that bypassed ears and went straight to the brain. Images of Draviks destroying cities, breaking armies, reducing populations to whimpering husks. Shade reacted instantly. Its form darkened, expanded, became the nightmare from the recordings. Multiple limbs extended like blades, eyes blazed with predatory light. The creature's body language shifted from companion to hunter. Several security officers stepped back despite their training. Diplomat Senna gripped her chair arms. Even Elder Morthus looked frightened. Owen stood directly in Shade's path. The creature moved toward the source of the fear recordings, pulled by instincts 10,000 years old. Its form flickered between states, fighting itself. Shade, look at me, Owen said calmly. Not a command, just a request. Shade's multiple eyes swung toward Owen. For a moment, recognition seemed to fade. The creature saw Owen but did not know him. I know it hurts, Owen continued. I know every part of you is screaming to feed, to hunt, to do what you were made for. But you are stronger than that. You are more than what they made you. Shade took another step toward the fear source. One limb rose, ready to strike. You have a choice, Owen said. He did not move, did not raise his voice. You always have a choice. You can be what they made you, or you can be what you choose to be. The conference room held its breath. Shade's form flickered faster now, unstable and conflicted. The creature made a sound that was part growl, part whimper. Its limbs trembled with the effort of holding back. Then slowly Shade turned away from the fear recordings. The creature looked at Owen with clearing eyes. Recognition returned. Understanding returned. Shade moved toward Owen and gently placed its head against Owen's chest. The predatory form faded. The creature's body relaxed into the shape it had worn for the past 4 days. Stop the recordings, Elder Morthus ordered. His voice shook with emotion. The phantom screams cut off. Silence filled the room. Shade collapsed, exhausted from the internal battle. Owen sat down beside it, one hand stroking the creature's form. I am proud of you, he whispered. Admiral Varesh stared at what he had just witnessed. His military training told him this was impossible. His eyes told him it was real. That should not have happened, he said finally. But it did, Diplomat Senna replied. She looked at Shade with wonder. We just watched a Draviks choose peace over violence when presented with perfect feeding conditions. Elder Morthus wiped tears from his old face. In all my years of research, I never dared hope for this. We have spent millennia hating these creatures, destroying them on sight. What if they were all capable of this? What if we never gave them the chance? We cannot change the past, Torvin said quietly. But we can change what happens next. The tribunal deliberated privately for 10 minutes. Owen stayed with Shade, helping the creature recover from its ordeal. The rest of the station crew waited tensely. When the tribunal returned, Admiral Varesh spoke. We have reached a decision. The Draviks designated as Shade will not be destroyed. Relief flooded through the room. However, Varesh continued, conditions will be placed. The creature must remain under supervision. It must undergo regular evaluation, and it must stay with the human Owen Blake, who appears to be the stabilizing factor. I can live with that, Owen said. There is one more thing, Diplomat Senna added. She looked at Shade with thoughtful eyes. This cannot be unique. If one Draviks can change, others might as well. We need to locate remaining stasis pods, carefully awaken them. Give them the same chance we gave Shade. You want to create more of these things? Admiral Varesh asked incredulously. I want to save a species we helped destroy, Senna replied. The Draviks did not make themselves into weapons. We did that to them. Maybe it is time we gave them back their original purpose. Elder Morthus nodded agreement. I will donate my remaining years to this research. If Shade can teach other Draviks to resist their programming, we could heal wounds that span millennia. Commander Torvin felt something shift in his chest. The hatred he had carried, the fear passed down through generations, it felt lighter now. Cradle of Stars will serve as the rehabilitation center. We will need resources, specialists, security protocols. You will have them, Senna promised. This is too important to ignore. Even Admiral Varesh seemed moved, though he tried to hide it. I want weekly reports. Any sign of danger? Any hint of reversion? We shut this down immediately. Understood, Admiral. Torvin agreed. The tribunal adjourned. Fleet representatives left the station with evidence that would shake the galactic community. News services would spread the story within hours. Historians would debate its meaning for years. Owen led Shade back to the storage bay. The creature moved slowly, still tired from the test. Once inside their familiar space, Shade settled into its usual resting spot. We did it, Owen said. He felt tears on his face but did not try to stop them. You did it. Shade made a happy sound and curled around Owen protectively. Outside, the station crew celebrated. Inside the bay, Owen and Shade simply rested together. Two beings who had changed the galaxy by refusing to accept that monsters could not choose to be something else. 3 months changed everything. Owen walked through the modified habitat wing carrying a tray of food synthesized for human digestion. Shade followed close behind, its multiple limbs moving with practiced grace through corridors that once seemed too narrow. The creature had learned the station's layout better than some crew members, navigating by memory and spatial awareness. They passed a group of engineers who waved cheerfully. One of them, a Graxian named Pell, called out, Hey Shade, still helping Owen fix things? Shade made an affirmative rumble. The creature had developed a basic vocabulary of sounds that regular crew members understood. Happiness sounded different from curiosity, which sounded different from concern. Fixed the gravity stabilizer in Section 9 yesterday, Owen replied proudly. Shade held 3 different tools while I worked. Saved me an hour of climbing up and down. The habitat wing had been designed specifically for Dravik's rehabilitation. Large rooms with adjustable environments, observation equipment that did not feel intrusive, and spaces where the creatures could move freely. Currently, the wing housed 3 Draviks, including Shade. The second arrival had happened 6 weeks ago. Another ancient pod recovered from a dead world. When that Dravix emerged, confused and starving, Shade had been there. The 2 creatures communicated through means that scientists still did not fully understand. Psychic impressions, body language, something deeper than words. Owen had named the second Dravix Mist because its form seemed even more ethereal than Shade's. Mist had struggled more with the transformation, several times reverting to aggressive behavior when frightened. But Shade stayed close, showing Mist that another way existed. Now Mist helped in the station's hydroponics bay, using its multiple limbs to tend plants with surprising gentleness. The third Dravix had arrived 2 weeks ago. A larger specimen that the recovery team named Storm before Owen could suggest something else. Storm was still learning, still fighting old programming, but progress happened daily. Owen entered the common area where Shade and Mist usually spent their mornings. He found them engaged in what Dr. Hallex called cooperative problem solving. The 2 creatures worked together to manipulate a complex puzzle designed for species with multiple limbs and spatial reasoning. You 2 are going to run. Out of puzzles soon, Owen said, setting down his food tray. Shade abandoned the puzzle immediately and moved to Owen's side. After 3 months, the bond between them had only deepened. Shade seemed happiest when close to Owen, though the creature had learned to spend time with others too. Mist continued working on the puzzle, determined to finish. Dr. Hallex entered carrying her ever-present scanning equipment. Good morning. I have news from the Galactic Council. Owen looked up from his breakfast. Good news or bad news? Potentially wonderful news. 7 more Dravik stasis pods have been located. 5 governments have agreed to fund the recovery and rehabilitation program. We are being recognized as an official sanctuary. That is a lot of Draviks, Owen said carefully, which is why we need to expand the program. You cannot be the primary handler for all of them. We need to train others. Owen had known this was coming. In quiet moments, he worried about what would happen if something happened to him. Shade had bonded with others, but Owen remained the anchor. If he left, would Shade revert? Would the other Draviks lose their progress? I will help train people, Owen agreed. But it has to be the right people. Calm people. Patient people. The Draviks can sense genuine emotion. You cannot fake the kind of acceptance they need. Hallex nodded. We have applicants from 6 different species. All volunteers. All willing to relocate here for long-term assignment. Commander Torvin arrived for his daily check-in. The Graxian commander made a point of visiting the habitat wing every morning, partly for security, partly because he genuinely cared about the program's success. Storm showed significant improvement last night, Torvin reported. Stayed calm when the maintenance crew worked near its habitat. Even let one of them pet its back limb. That is progress, Owen said. Storm remained the most volatile of the 3, occasionally lashing out when startled. But the incidents were becoming less frequent. Shade moved away from Owen and approached Torvin. The creature had formed a special bond with the commander, recognizing the courage it took for Torvin to face his inherited fear every single day. Torvin reached out and touched Shade's head, a gesture that had become ritual between them. How are you today, old friend? Shade made a content sound. A priority alert flashed across the room's communication panel. Hallex answered it. Her expression shifted from curious to excited. They found it, she said breathlessly. The homeworld. The Dravik's homeworld. Everyone in the room went still. We knew their planet of origin was lost. Hallex continued, reading the incoming data. But an archaeological survey just located it. The civilization that corrupted them built a station there. Records, research, maybe even information about how to accelerate the rehabilitation process. When do we leave? Owen asked. Torvin smiled. Already planning the expedition. Small team. Scientific focus. And we want to bring Shade. Owen looked at his companion. What do you think? Want to see where your people came from? Shade moved closer to Owen, pressing against him. The gesture communicated both nervousness and trust. Yes, it seemed to say. If you are there, I can do this. 2 weeks later, a small ship departed Cradle of Stars. Owen, Shade, Dr. Hallex, Commander Torvin, and a specialist team headed toward coordinates that had been lost for 10,000 years. The journey took 5 days. Owen spent most of it with Shade, talking about what they might find. The creature seemed to understand this was important, a chance to learn about its people before corruption. When they arrived, the planet looked dead. No atmosphere, no life signs. But the ancient station orbited above, still functional after millennia. They docked carefully. The station's interior had been preserved by stasis fields. Laboratories full of equipment, libraries full of data, and something unexpected, images, not historical records or scientific diagrams, personal images. Dravik's families, Dravik's children playing, Dravik's adults engaged in what looked like healing work, helping other species process trauma and grief. They were therapists, Hallex whispered. Empathic healers. Other civilizations came to them for help. Owen watched Shade move through the ancient corridors, touching walls that its ancestors had touched. The creature stopped in front of one particular image. A Dravik similar in size to Shade, surrounded by beings from a dozen different species. All of them looked peaceful, healed. Shade made a sound Owen had never heard before, something that might have been grief or might have been hope. Your people were good, Owen said quietly. They helped others. That is what you were always meant to be. They found research notes that explained the corruption process. A desperate military force facing extinction had forced the Draviks to change. Genetic modification, psychological conditioning, torture disguised as training. The Draviks had tried to resist but were too gentle a species to fight back effectively. We can use this, Dr. Hallex said. These notes show exactly what was done. We can reverse engineer the process, help the others transform faster. They spent 3 days documenting everything. When they finally returned to Cradle of Stars, Owen felt like they carried something precious. Not just scientific data, but truth. The Draviks were not monsters by nature. They were victims who had been monsterized. 6 months after Shade first awoke, the station hosted 12 Draviks in various stages of rehabilitation. 7 had achieved full transformation. 3 were showing strong progress. 2 were still struggling but improving. Owen now led a team of 15 handlers. He taught them what he had learned through trial and error: patience, consistency, genuine acceptance. The Draviks responded to authenticity above all else. Galactic opinion was slowly shifting. Species that had feared Dravix for millennia watched in amazement as the creatures became productive members of station life. Storm, the most difficult case, had recently started helping in search and rescue training. The creature's multiple limbs and sensory abilities made it perfect for locating people in complex environments. Owen found himself becoming a minor celebrity. News services wanted interviews. Governments wanted consultations. He refused most requests, preferring to focus on the work. But one evening, sitting in his quarters with shade curled around him, Owen reflected on how much had changed. A year ago, he had been a lonely maintenance worker going through the motions of living. Depression made every day feel gray and distant. Now he woke up with purpose. He had friends. He had meaningful work. Most importantly, he had shade. "Thank you," Owen said quietly, "for choosing this, for choosing me." Shade opened multiple eyes and looked at Owen with obvious affection. The creature shifted closer, protective and gentle. "You know what is funny?" Owen continued. "I spent years trying to feel connected to the world, trying to feel like I mattered. Then a legendary terror weapon wakes up and curls into my lap, and suddenly everything makes sense." Shade rumbled happily. Outside, stars drifted past. Inside, two beings who had saved each other rested peacefully. One human who learned that his greatest strength was his compassion. One Dravix who learned that it could choose to be more than what others made it. The galaxy would keep turning. More Dravix would be found and rehabilitated. Attitudes would continue to shift. History books would be rewritten. But in this moment, in this quiet room, nothing else mattered except the bond between a lonely human and a creature that chose his lap over chaos. And that was enough.